of product placement company Seesaw Media, and Chris Hackley is also with me, Professor of Marketing at Royal Holloway University. Darryl, I mean, just tell us how it works. I mean, how does a company go about getting its product into a film? Who goes to who?
Well, it depends. Normally what happens is, obviously once the script is written, the writers trying to keep in touch with reality, filter put a lot of brands within the script. So if there's opportunities, then what happens is, especially in America, the studios have production resources departments, and they go out there to all the brands out there, or their product placement agencies, and say, look, we've got an opportunity for your brand to appear on screen. Would you like to do it?
How far back does this go?
Well, I mean, there's obviously the classic examples are things like Reese's Pieces in E.T., but then it goes way back even further than that when you look at something like Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Yeah, so we've always done it.
Yeah, exactly.
Chris Hackley, must be basically pitfalls to this, and it's all to some extent about how much you can trust each other, isn't it?
I think trust is an important element, yeah, and it depends how the contract is written as well, because there have been occasions when an agreement has failed to result in the placement that was intended because the director ultimately has creative control over the movie. So it depends on each individual case.
In fact, Darryl, there's a classic example of this, isn't it, where of a promise being interpreted as having been broken.
No, definitely. I mean, there are a few, but I mean, the key one that everyone cites is Jerry Maguire and Reebok. Basically, Reebok spoke with TriStar, the distributors, about the opportunity, obviously, of a big sports brand being associated with a Tom Cruise movie. They even got Nike out of the script and got themselves in there. And the whole promise was that even though the main character bad mouths Reebok halfway through the film, at the end, Reebok, who committed about $1.5 million in terms of promotional spend and marketing activity, gets a commercial featuring Ron Tidwell, the main character, played by Cuba Gooding Jr., in a Reebok commercial. However, the director at the time decided that at the end of the film, he'd prefer the idea that the little boy that Tom Cruise kind of adopts actually turns out to be a potential major baseball star or football player, and they go with that instead, and they decided to cut the commercial at the end.
So R1 and I mean, this went to court, didn't it?
It did, yeah. Reebok filed suit against the film because at the end of the day it left them looking pretty bad. The outcome was that they settled out of court, and they're supposedly going to be working together on future films. But it just goes to show, as said earlier, that it's very important that agreements are kept in place and that it's all properly managed.
Chris, how much money is there in this? What sort of sums are we talking about?
Well, these agreements are usually confidential. The sums are considerable, and I'm not the best person to explain how they run the contract. The gamble that the client takes is as regards not only whether the placement will appear in the movie, but how successful the movie is going to be. So a couple of years ago, for example, there was an agreement with two brands in Slumdog Millionaire. They didn't like the setting, so they decided to have those pixelated out. But ultimately the movie was a huge success, and they missed a trick. So.
Yeah. But do you think, Chris, that people are so simplistic, that they do see a film star with a certain item and they want it themselves? Is that how it works?
Well, they can be. People we've interviewed have been quite candid in explaining this. They identify with a movie persona or a movie star, and they use a particular product because they want to be like that. I think most of us would be in a bit of denial over that, and we would explain it in a slightly more complex way, but that is fundamentally how it works. The other issue with product placement is that it works ideologically. It presents brands in a setting which is intimate to people's everyday lives, and that's why it's so particularly powerful.
What fascinates me, Darryl, is how you measure this. We talk about sales increasing after a product's been featured in a popular film, but how can the companies really know what's been responsible for the increase?
Well, it depends. I mean, it depends on a number of factors. I mean, the key thing about product placement isn't just to place your brand in a film and hope that the sales go on the back of that. What the opportunity about placing a brand in a film does, it gives you the opportunity to talk about the brand in a very current environment and very, with sexy stars attached. So the key thing is to use that as the sort of leverage to promote the brand. So you combine it with promotional activity, with PR, with competitions, all these sort of stuff that helps generate awareness for the film and your association with it.
Chris, is it a bad thing or a good thing? I mean, do people actually like it or hate it, or it's interesting to see really what the moral dimension of this is.
Well, I think it's necessary. I mean, the moral dimension of it is that it's obviously deceptive at one level because it's a promotion masquerading as an entertainment. But on the other hand, on the levels of deception, it's pretty benign, and it's more of a deception by omission. It's an implicit thing, and consequently, it's a sort of omission that we use ourselves every day in conversation. It's an aspect of human communication. I think it's a good thing in a sense that people really need brands in their entertainment, their computer games, their novels, because without them they don't seem real. And the genre now is dramatic realism, and people demand these things. So directors ultimately don't have a choice. You can't have an edition of a soap opera on the BBC with masking tape stuck over the cornflake packet, because it just looks silly and consumers won't accept that.
Okay, well, Daryl Collis, Chris Hackley, thank you both very much indeed.